Welcome to Central Speaks, home of our weekly podcast. Central Speaks is produced by Hamilton Central Baptist Church.
I guess every good story has a beginning. Well, mine is a little different to most. It isn't once upon a time. It isn't long, long ago in a faraway land. My story is all about my mates and what they were willing to do for me and my mat. My story is about the length that my friends were willing to go for me and their unfailing faith. So I'm one of those people who have been blessed with an amazing group of friends that have been with me through it all. These guys are seriously awesome. They are the ones that your mum would be proud for you to have as friends. You see, I'm not the most normal guy. Actually, I'm far from normal in reality. Until recently, I was paralysed and confined to a bed. These guys would go out of their way to make sure that I was still part of the group, that I was still connected. The amount of conversations that were had at the market between sales and begging was amazing, and they would regularly make sure that I was included and that I didn't miss out on anything because I was confined to a mat. We had heard murmurings through the market of this teacher, this miracle maker who was from another town. We had heard that he had some kind of power, that there was something different about him, which is really exciting. Though hearing that he had come from Nazareth did make us a little wonder if the rumour mill had turned this into a twisted Chinese whisper. Could anything good come from that town? Could anything good come from Nazareth? But maybe he's the one who could change the mood or change the writing as such. Maybe he could break the tradition that nothing good came from Nazareth. He'd been in the town a couple of days ago and had healed Simon's mother-in-law from her fever. And then by the end of the day, there had been a crowd that had gathered around Simon's house, and this teacher called Jesus was healing them of all their diseases, and he was casting out demons. My friends and I were talking about this the next day, and once the full story had reached its way through the whole town, the guys continued our conversation. It was while the market was still trading, and there were moments where the stalls and the begging were forgotten about. We were starting to talk about what would it have been like if I had been there. Would it have been different? Would Jesus have been able to heal me? There were various and sometimes very loud debates that this teacher, maybe I was too far gone for his healing. Maybe it was too much. Maybe it was beyond what he could do. Our discussions went back and forth. Maybe he could have healed me. Maybe not. This went on way past market closing and continued late into the night. My family started to weigh into the discussion as well. My mother started to dream about how much my life could have been different if I could walk. Maybe if I wasn't bound to this mat, could I have a life that was more meaningful, more able to do things? Arriving at the market each day and begging for more than just a living. Maybe I could have my own job. Maybe I didn't need to be dependent anymore on my parents. What could it be like? Every time my mind went there, I jumped back to reality. The reality of the mat. The reality of looking at the same ceiling every night. The reality of lying in the rain while waiting for people to move me. Every time I started to question whether this could work, I was reminded by one or other of my friends that of course it could work for me. Of course this healer could make me walk. Of course this healer could change my life. If only I'd been there. If only we had been there. The dreams of what if got bigger and bigger, and my hope kept on rising with the thought that maybe I could have been healed. That night I drifted off to sleep, staring at the ceiling and following the fine cracks, counting the amount that were there and trailing off into other cracks, and noted that no new ones had come. I started to dream of what my life could be like. What would it be like if my legs could walk? What would it be like if I could do a different type of life with a body that completely worked? What if I was healed? I'd be able to go to my friend's place. I'd be able to go and hang out with them. Only a few days later, the boys were talking and dreaming yet again of what healing could look like. And we're at the market, and we heard this chatter, and murmurs that the healer, the person called Jesus, is back in town. He was here. I have to say, I got a little excited. My friends all looked over from their stands towards me, and the closest asked, "Should we try? Should we go and see if we can make it to this man, this teacher, this healer?" My friend who had the stall closest to me said, "This is the time. Shall we try? Are you keen?" I dreamed that this could be the truth, that maybe this was my chance. Is this the opportunity that we had been dreaming for the last few days? Is this my time for change? I wasn't sure if it was worth the chance. Was it worth the opportunity to see if this was my chance to have a different life and see things from a different angle? Maybe I could carry one of my friends rather than them carrying me. They quickly left their stalls with others offering to watch over their stand, and the four of them came to the four corners of my mat and with ease of regular movement picked me up by my mat and started to make their way to the home that the teacher was at. As we started to move through the market, there were murmurings of well wishes. "Hope this works out for you." All the regulars there were encouraging. Anticipation was building with us five as we started to wonder and quietly discuss what this could mean. Is this my time for change? As we weaved through the market, through the village towards the home where the teacher was, we saw groups of people gathering. The closer we got, it was the harder for them to carry me. But my friends, because they're amazing and awesome, they persevered and they made their way through the masses. Occasionally, I was knocked and pushed, and the closer we got, the chance to get me and carrying the mat got harder. The people were gathered and listening to the words of the teacher through every window, and they filled all the doorways. My heart dropped as we arrived. Maybe my dreams of walking, maybe they were too much. Maybe it wasn't my time. Maybe not ever. Was I never going to walk? Maybe I just came to hear the words and to dwell on the teaching of Jesus. Maybe I wasn't expected, or maybe I wasn't going to experience this miraculous healing that we had been dreaming about. I could see that my four friends were getting desperate. They wanted to get me in, and there was a conversation that quickly tried to work out the plan. "Maybe we'll lift him above our heads," they said, "and push through the door." Maybe not. Or maybe we could crowd surf him in through one of the windows and hope that the people on the other side would follow suit and let the mat and myself land at the feet of the teacher. There were a few more crazy ideas, and they're not even worth repeating. I started to say to the guys, "This isn't going to happen today. It's not worth the stress." One of my mates paused and, wiping his brow, was about to give up. "There has to be something we can do." Well, we all have that one friend who's a little bit more outside the box than the others. That slightly weird one who said, "I have an idea, trust me." Well, I'm not completely sure that I trusted him because some of his ideas were a little far-fetched, but he told us to look up. We looked up and there was nothing out of the ordinary, nothing unusual that could solve our problems. He said, "Let's take the stairs and go through the roof." Through the roof? That's a little bit crazy. That's a little bit off the wall as such. There was some very heated discussion about this. The talk went further as to how, and is it possible? Should we talk about this? The roof is pretty big. He persevered, and one by one, he turned all of us that this was a good idea. That's something we should do. These four guys walked up the stairs, juggling and adjusting the way they carried me without dropping me. Though, to be honest, there was one moment when I thought, is this really worth it? It was about the same time that the guys juggled the mat with sweat dripping down their brows, and I nearly slipped off. They quickly regripped and carried on, literally. Once we were on the roof, I started to second-guess this whole idea. It was a bit far-fetched. After all, his plan was to put a hole in the roof of someone's house, a house that didn't belong to us. This is quite major. This is one epic, far-out thing. Once they got to the roof, a second wind seemed to come with these four guys. They laid down my mat and they started ripping, clawing, and digging their way through the roof with their hands and sticks and anything they could find. The dirt, the straw, and the rest of the roofing started to pile up beside me. This is a massive thing. This is a roof that was big enough to hold all of our weights. There are shouts for joy when one of them breaks through. It's just a small hole, but they were so excited they kept on going. We can hear the words of the teaching rising up through the hole that is made. There are little gasps from the audience below as I guess the dust and the dirt starts to fall on them as the hole is being made bigger and bigger. The strength, the perseverance of my friends is amazing. The trust that is to follow can only be seen and described as a harebrained idea starts to take shape, and the hole is nearly big enough for me to fit through. I'm starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed at the emotion of the thought that this could be my moment. This could be my chance to see and experience healing. Maybe this is my time to rise to the occasion. I start to cheer and support the guys. I encourage them to keep going. They're starting to tire. It's been a really long day, and they're looking exhausted. I'm lying on my mat, surrounded by piles of straw with clumps of dry dirt attached to it. And I'm amazed at their strength. I cheer them on. While shaking my head in amazement, I am humbled by their determination and their willingness to take such a huge risk on my behalf, whilst also being scared out of my wits at the thought of how am I going to get down through this hole into the room. I'm paralysed. But still, what if I fall? What if they all fall? What are we doing? Well, we're too far gone to be worrying about this now. The murmuring from below grew louder as the debris and clods of dirt started to fall on their heads. As they peered up, it started to fall in their eyes also. Jesus smiled. Perhaps he's aware of what's happening above. The owner of the home and his wife are confused, concerned, and a little bit worried. Man, if this had been our place, if this had been the roof at my parents' house, what would my mum be saying right now? Eek, maybe I shouldn't think about that. This is a pretty big, ambitious, outlandish plan. Then the bright rays of the sun hit the floor of the home. The hole in the roof is now big enough for me. My friends start to remove their belts from their waist and one by one carefully tie one end of their belt to each corner of my mat, ensuring that their knots are tight and secure. They then all talk to each other as they gently lift me off the roof and carry me across the gaping hole. They tightly hold on to their belts and then, together in unison, slowly let their belts glide through their dirty, aching hands. The shadow from my mat is cast over those who are closest to the teacher, those who are seated at his feet, covered in a fine layer of dust and dirt from the hole that we made. They are now facing me, landing in their laps, literally. I feel myself getting lower into the room. I hear the gasps and then the silence as I'm getting lower and lower. I can see the tiredness and the stress from all this going across the faces of my friend. You can see the sweat dripping down their foreheads from all that they've done. Beneath me, you can hear shuffling as the people are moving out of the way. They don't want this mat and this person to be in their lap. They don't want to be near me, especially after I'm the reason why they're now dirty and covered in dust. They didn't ask for this. They were just there listening to the teacher. My friends lower themselves to their knee and lower me to the ground in front of the teacher. The teacher eyes me with grace and compassion. He looks up. He sees the expectant look of my friends. He sees their determination. He sees their faith. They have literally ripped off a roof for me. The faith of my friends is quite visible, is it not? It's got to be one of the most creative schemes ever. Their faith in Jesus is made clear to everyone. They've ripped off a roof. That is faith if ever I have seen it. Jesus turns his head down and looks at me and says these words that I will never forget, words that are etched into my heart and will forever be on my mind. Son, your sins are forgiven. I did stop and wonder, did he see that my legs didn't work? Did he see that the effort my friends went for to be healed, and he's saying to me, son, your sins are forgiven? I was kind of hoping that he was going to do something about the fact that my legs didn't work. I saw the same thought going through the minds of my friends. Did this teacher not get it? Did he not get that they were going through all this effort of carrying their friends to try and get me to be healed? Did he not see the effort that they were trying to get my mat through the roof, and then the effort of digging a hole in the roof just to find out that my sins are forgiven by a teacher we barely knew, who doesn't have the right nor the ability to forgive sins? But Jesus, the healer, he had compassion and saw the extent and the belief that my friends had in him. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, where it's more than just a hole being cut in a roof, more than the extreme faith of my friends, the teachers of the law. These men who hold themselves above all, that they're the most important, that they know the most. There was discussion amongst themselves as they debated back and forth, quite loudly, I must say. Who is this man? Who is this teacher who says these things? He doesn't have right to say this. Only God can forgive, not this teacher. Who does he think he is? These teachers of the laws had some thoughts of their own, and they're not always pleasant. Really, they think that Jesus is blaspheming. So Jesus responds by saying, so you might know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. He heals. He looks at me and he tells me to pick up my mat and walk. This is the same mat that is attached to the belts of my 4 faithful friends. To my amazement and the amazement of everyone there, I stand up and I walk. By this one act, Jesus proves that he was on equal footing to the judge of all, God. He proves that he can forgive and heal. As the crowds in Capernaum dispersed that day, I wonder if the owners were left by themselves to stare up at that gaping hole in their roof. Hopefully, they remembered that they know a carpenter who might be able to help with the issue. Let's have a look at some of the key players in this story. Are you like the homeowners and his wife? The homeowner could have easily come out and forced these 4 guys to stop. He could have forced them to stop and miss an opportunity to see a miracle happening in his own home. But there is a price. There is a price that they had to pay, for little did they know when they invited the Messiah, the teacher, to come and talk, that would be an unexpected cost. Now, for some ways, there's always an unexpected cost that we can't anticipate. Now, sometimes the cost that we have to pay in following the Messiah is not as dramatic as having to re-roof your home. Sometimes the price is setting an extra place at your table for someone who needs a meal. Sometimes the cost isn't that big and massive, but there is always an unexpected cost. But sometimes being willing to pay the unexpected cost means that you get to see an unexpected miracle, or you get to see God at work in the lives of people. Are you like one of the teachers of the law? Are you so caught up in the rules and the regulations, the tracking back and the checking and seeing if that's allowed to happen, that you missed the reason? That you missed the miracle? Well, maybe they didn't miss the miracle entirely, but they missed the celebration that here is a man who had his life turned around. This man went from begging in the marketplace to being able to walk. He now faced a very different life from a very different perspective. So are you so caught up in the what should be said and done at times that you forget that Jesus did the unconventional? Jesus worked outside of the box. So do you need to break free from this and experience a Jesus who didn't follow the rules? This wasn't who the teachers of the law had expected, but they should have anticipated. Or are you like one of the friends who are willing to go to the extreme and trust and have faith that the teacher, this healer, will do something out of the box? Are you willing to rip a roof off with your bare hands? Are you willing to get your hands dirty? Are you willing to be unconventional and go against the crowd just to see and experience our Messiah doing the unexpected? Did these 4 friends choose the safe route? Was ripping off the roof a wise decision? Possibly not. Was lowering a paralysed man on a mat through a hole in a roof? It's possibly not on the top 5 strategic moves to get your friends to Jesus list. Possibly doesn't work that way. But is following Jesus safe? If Jesus is leading, it may not be safe, but we can be secure knowing that He is there. He is alongside us, He is in front of us, and He is behind us. What 2 safe plans do you have for your friends? What 2 safe plans do you have for you? What 2 safe plans do you have for your family? What 2 safe plans do you have for your friends? What 2 safe plans do we have as a church? Where is Jesus saying, come on, try me? Jesus is the Son of God who has the authority on earth to forgive sins and bring full freedom. So He is worth taking risks. And there are desperate, paralysed, sinful people around us who are in need. Did you miss the man uttering the words, take up our mat and walk? Walk in the way that the Messiah and you have been waiting for and seeking. This is the one who has promised that this is the man who is going to transform our lives and the world as we know it. And thanks to friends and faith in the power of Jesus, this former paralytic man rolls up his mat and walks away in freedom and forgiveness.
Thanks for joining us this week online. Come join us on Sunday mornings too if you're in Hamilton. Find out more about Hamilton Central Baptist Church and discover ways to get involved at www.hcbc.nz. Join us again next week at Central Speaks.